Welcome to Philosophy 335, History of Ethics. In this video, we're going to get a brief tour of the course. In particular, we'll look at our Blackboard site, and we will look at the expectations for the course, assignments, readings, etc. Let me say a little bit about the course. Obviously, it's History of Ethics. Specifically, it's really the history of ethical philosophy. So we will look at how ideas about the nature of ethics developed over time. I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail in the videos in the introduction folder, so I'll refer you to that for more details. First, I want to give you a tour of our Blackboard site. That's where I'll be delivering almost all of the content for this course. So, when you start it off, you land on the announcements page. Okay. Now, there's several things. There is, of course, start here. There is the welcome, right, which is where you are now. The syllabus, which contains all kinds of details about policies, my office hours, etc. There's textbook information. Okay. Keep in mind that 2 of these textbooks are optional. Everything except these sources will be available online. However, that sometimes means links to online translations. And unfortunately, that often means old translations. They have the wonderful quality of being free, but they're old. Okay, so you're always free to go to the library and look for a more recent, up-to-date translation. So we have an assignment schedule, which sets out all the assignments with their due dates and the number of points for the assignment. We have Meet Your Instructor, which is where there will be a video that tells you who I am. And there's the course content, which I will get to in a moment. That has the content for the course. Down here we have announcements, hallway conversations. Okay, that's a discussion board where you can go to ask questions about course policies, due dates, things like that. We have email, which is how you can communicate with me and others. It should say student users as well. I'm recording this before the course starts, so there's no students in the course yet. And finally, group discussions. When you go to group discussions, your group will appear. Okay, I have all of them listed, but just your group will appear. And you go in to, say, group 2, or if you're in group 1, group 1. And among other things, there will be a group discussion board. And you'll see a number of threads. In particular, for each unit, there'll be an interpretive issues thread and a debating issues thread. That's where you're going to post your discussion post for the week. I'll get to that soon. So those are the main things. There will also be a folder that says assignments and a folder that says examinations. And it will give you details about the particular assignments and the examinations. Now let's talk about the content folders. Okay. This is where the main material for each unit can be found. Okay. For example, let's take a look at Unit 1. As you can see, there's a list of the readings. Okay. There will be, if it's an online reading, there'll be links to the readings. If it's in one of the required books, it'll tell you which book it's in. And there is a series of videos. These give you background information, sometimes break down the arguments for you, and other things about the content for the week. I recommend generally that you go back and forth between reading and videos. Do the reading, then watch the video, then do the reading again. Okay? Each time, and then maybe watch the video again. Okay? Each time you do this, you'll pick up more information, more understanding. And down below that, there is a reading quiz. Now, let me go through what you do in a typical week in this course. So I'll go to the assignment schedule. Let's take Unit 2, which is fairly typical. So by Tuesday for this unit, in this case, March 20th, I want you to do all of the readings and watch all of the videos. And then by midnight on Tuesday, you need to take the reading quiz. That'll be a 2-question quiz. 1 over the readings and 1 over the videos. Then I'll ask you to do an initial interpretive post. Here's what this means. You go to the discussion boards and you find, in this case, Unit 2, interpretive discussion, and you make a post. And what will that post be about? Each week, I'll describe a number of interpretive questions about the reading. That is, I'll point out different ways that people have interpreted the same passages in one of the authors. So for example, in week 3, we're going to look at Calvin. And some people are going to say, well, Calvin believed that morality was more or less an arbitrary set of commands given by God. But I'm not sure that that's fair to Calvin. Right? So what I'll ask you to do is go through the reading from Calvin and give arguments to say either yes, he did mean that, or no, he didn't mean that. The initial post should be 2 to 3 paragraphs. You won't be able to see anyone else's post until you've done your own. And that needs to be there by midnight on Tuesday. There's a similar thing with the debating posts. I will also give a series of questions about whether certain claims are correct. Okay. Notice interpretive posts discuss what the author meant. Debating posts will discuss whether certain claims are actually true. And those will tend to come in 2 varieties. Sometimes I'll point out that people debate whether a particular thing that the author said is correct. For example, suppose we think that Calvin really did say that morality was an arbitrary decision by God. Is he correct about that or not? Sometimes I will ask you to talk about one of the claims I make about historical development. For example, I will say, this author seems to clearly be drawing on this ancient author. So I'll say something like, it seems like Occam is drawing heavily on Aristotle's ideas here. And you'll discuss whether or not that's true. Right? So or I might say, it seems like this is very similar to the way we see things in the modern era. Is that correct or not? Now, to get those interpretive issues and debating issues, they will actually be in the unit folder. So for example, for unit 1, I have a video interpretive questions. Well, I'll describe them. And there will be a video debating questions. Those are your activities for a typical week. You may also note on the assignment schedule, there will be a midterm exam. It consists of difficult multiple choice questions, short answer questions, 5 to 6 sentences, and a short essay. I've also added this semester an optional paper. Okay. So if you choose to do the optional paper, you will need to sign up for that by the end of the first week. And I will put the sign-up sheet in the introduction folder. So you need to go in and say, yes, I want to write the optional paper. Okay. If you do that, basically, then your exams will be worth fewer points. So I'll take some points out from the exams. You'll take the same exams, I'll just sort of proportionally reduce it. And then the rest of the points will be made up by your score on your final paper. Now, this is basically a final decision and commitment. You have to make your decision by the end of the first week. If you haven't signed up at that point, then you don't get to write the paper. You don't get to decide later, oh, wait, I did badly on the exams. I want to write the paper. In addition, if you choose to write the paper, barring emergencies or special circumstances, you will be required to write the paper. And in some cases, that might mean if you really can't get it done by the end of the semester, you'll have to take an incomplete. So think carefully before you sign up for that option. Now, let me add one additional thing about that option. The paper is optional, but if you ever want a graduate school recommendation or law school or medical school recommendation from me, you should probably write the paper. Right? If you ask me for a recommendation and I've taught a class that had a paper as an option and you didn't write a paper, then I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I don't have enough material to work with. I can't really write a good recommendation for you. Okay? So if you think you might want a recommendation from me in the future, then you should write the paper. I would also note that if you choose to write the paper, there is a required outline. You will be required to write an outline where you basically summarize your argument so I can tell you if I think you're on the right track or not. A lot of times people take on an issue that's way too big for a term paper for this course. Right? They try to solve all the world's ethical problems in one 8-page paper, and I have to say, no, that doesn't work. Okay? And so I'll use that to give you useful feedback so you can write a better paper. I'd rather spot the problem a few weeks in advance so you can fix it, then spot it when I'm giving you a grade on the final paper. That concludes our course tour. If you have any questions that aren't answered in the syllabus, etc., I would say first go post it on the hallway conversations, and then if you don't get an answer from the hallway conversations, go ahead and email me. And again, that concludes our course tour. Thank you.